So, Mick, thanks a million for coming to see us.
You're welcome.
It's good to see you. I've known you for a long time, obviously through Crowleys Music Centre, and I think you may be on the scene, the Cork music scene, for maybe 40 years, is it?
Well, I bought this guitar from your dad in 1968.
Yeah.
It was the first decent guitar I ever bought. It was 29 guineas.
Wow.
29 guineas. Guineas were a thing at the time. If you went to your doctor, he charged you in guineas. So it's 11. It came from Sweden, and it's a lovely old thing, and I still have it.
So, what age were you when you started playing?
I suppose I started playing guitar when I was about 14 or 15. I remember I saw a guitar in a house in Ballinlough. It was the Cummins' house, the famous sporting family, have the shops now. I was friendly with Brendan, and in the corner of the room, like just over there somewhere, there was a guitar, and I remember just falling in love with the thing. I don't think I ever touched it even. It was just, what is that like? And that was it. And I suppose when a couple of years later, when I was in maybe first year in Christians, only I bought some kind of a guitar and tuned it in my own particular way and played individual notes on it. It's all a bit peculiar. It wasn't proper guitar playing in that sense, and I did that for a few years until I was after I was in boarding school for a couple of years. I had it there and came back to Christians again, 66, and learned my first chords from a Bob Dylan songbook. C, F, and G. G7 actually.
So at that stage you would have been going down to Merchant's Quay, to Crowleys in Merchant's Quay, but...
I'm not sure. I bought a couple of guitars in O'Callaghan's. Was Kelly's on the Grand Parade? But I would have been going into Crowleys anyway and looking at things. I remember seeing things and being fascinated by stuff.
Yeah.
Didn't really know your dad well at that stage, but I say 1968, just out of school, I decided I was working that summer. I had a few bob, and I bought this guitar, and that was the first decent guitar I had. And that was it. Like I was discovered by a ballad group shortly after that, and that was the start of my career.
So who was the ballad group?
They were called the Folk Set.
Right.
There's Sean Roach is still around. He went to Australia eventually. Bobby Donovan was the fiddle player. I'm not sure if I was in before him or not. He's down in Florida now. A fellow called Derry Sullivan, who's still around Cork somewhere. And we used to play in places like Kenneficks and Barrack Street, Bantry Bay Hotels, places like that. We were the only ballad group at the time that were singing Leonard Cohen songs. It was something on a Saturday night or Friday night up in Kenneficks in Barrack Street. We'd lead them all in the chorus of So Long Marianne at the end of the night.
Brilliant.
It was a sight to see.
You have a great history, in fairness, all the different bands you've played, and I'd like to think of some of them now, because Four Men and a Dog you played with Mary Black.
Dog, I was that dog.
Yeah. Oh, explain your nickname for me, please. You were the black dog as such, so that's why they adopted that. Yeah.
As you can see.
Yeah.
Somebody decided I looked like a pirate about 1968, 69. Well, we all met Jimmy Crowley, Martin Daly, Mick Murphy, and Mick O'Brien, who were in the Lee Valley String Band, and the afterwards, people like that, Chris Toomey, who formed the Lee Valley String Band with Neil Toner. We all met around that time, 1968, 69. There was a kind of I suppose the revival in Cork at that time. The great folk scare had come a little late to Cork, as it's known in America, and we all kind of met that time. And somebody decided I looked like a pirate, and one of the pirates in Treasure Island, Robert Louis Stevenson's famous book, was called Black Dog.
So you got tagged.
I got the name Black Dog.
Very good. And how were you with the band for?
I was with the folks
album?
at that stage, yeah.
All right.
And that was and Mick O'Brien and Mick Murphy were in a band called Plum Duff. Jimmy Crowley and Martin Daly were starting around that time. We used to run gigs in places like the Group Theatre, James L. Healy's old place in South Main Street. We used to, put on things there, like a bit of fun more than anything else.
Yeah.
And get together type thing.
All the old places, the old venues, and the history you have, like even the names. But like today, I think we're kind of lacking venues. Would you say in Cork? There's lots and lots of musicians,
but there's none of a decent size. I mean, the Oliver Plunkett does a lot of work, but I mean, it's very much a commercial thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Collins is a very small venue, but a very intimate venue, and does wonderful work. It gets people in. But I mean, again, it's kind of taken over from the lobby, even though it's slightly smaller than the old lobby, and that was a great centre for bringing people into Cork years ago. But again, it's a fine venue, but you can only cater for certain acts and certain crowds, and can just about get by on that basis,
Yeah, and you're well known amongst all the musicians, and I you know what I love about you, Mick, is you tend to foster the young musicians coming up. That's what I would have seen down through the years, and you're always very helpful, and you kind of guide them along, like, and that's what I've seen you do anyway.
Yeah,
You
I
mightn't
think
admit
I've been
that.
a nice person, even though people say I'm a grumpy old man.
They call you a grumpy old man. I can't believe that. But you get to travel a lot over the years, have you? I mean,
not in recent years. There was a time when any old timer together, myself and Matt Crandage and Dave Hennessy, and they were both teachers, so like we'd basically take a holiday during their holidays, and we'd go over to England and do folk clubs and a couple of festivals and things. We got to Scandinavia a couple of times. We used to go to Vienna for Easter Patrick's weekend was a kind of a thing over there. We used to go over to a festival or two there, and that was a bit of travelling. A bit more when I was with Mary Black for 2 years, even though we didn't work a lot. There were a couple of trips to America which I enjoyed. Then when they went to Australia, I got left behind. And I wasn't with the band much after that. It was enjoyable.
When you were with Mary, were you playing guitar?
I was playing guitar, yeah. Basically, what happened was Noel Bridgman, the drummer from Dublin, was playing second guitar with Declan. There was just two of them with Mary, and around that time there was a bit of trouble in the north, and Mary had some gigs arranged up there, and Noel decided he didn't want to go, basically because he was playing with his band The Business in Dublin, in Capel Street, like Slattery's every weekend, and didn't want to give that up, rather. So Declan came to me in a bit of a panic one day and said, I've got these gigs in the north, I need a second guitar player, will you come? So I rehearsed half the set, I think, that weekend, and then the following weekend we rehearsed the second half of the set. And that was the start of my Mary Black period. We got Pat Crowley in then after that, because we were doing some recording, and I did that for 2 years. It's great fun.
And I presume, were you on Barking Mad, that album? And
I was on the Barking Mad album. That's the only one I was on. That was the first album that Four Men and a Dog did. We were touring in England, and basically I'd have been making more money in Cork if I was delivering stuff around in my van or something. I was doing a bit of PA work and sleeping on people's floors, and that wasn't working out very well. And then somebody stole all my microphones. Like a collection that I put together secondhand over years. I mean, they weren't anything spectacular, but
they mean a lot to you, like.
They were my work, because I was a sound engineer at the time, was a bit as well.
Yeah.
So I said, sorry lads, but find somebody young and hungry who preferably who writes songs, and I'll be on my merry way. And they got Kevin Doherty in. He was a lovely man, and he took over from me.
Actually, in the start, they would have been a trad band, but they would have mixed it up a bit, did they?
Very much so. Gino was very much into blues, and still is. And like the things like Short Fat Fanny, and I mean, we did a rap song on that first album.
Really?
It was a guy from what's his name, Neil something, who's a journalist up in Belfast, and he wrote this rap song, and we were quite taken about it, and we were recording, and then we realized it was very short, so we rang him up, and he wrote the second verse, and came down, and what was it called again? I can't remember now. But it was great fun. But I mean, I did things like an Ola Bell Reid song on that album. I did what's the other man's? For the opening track was a song, and then into a tune, but that was a song by an American songwriter whose name escapes me at the moment. A lot of things escape me at the moment at this stage in my life.
I know the feeling. But will you play a song for me on that lovely 11? What is it? How old is it?
That was 1968.
Yeah.
And the strings are very peculiar at the moment, so... fair and tender ladies, take warning how you court your men. They're like the stars on a summer's morning. First they'll appear and then they're gone. They'll tell to you some lying story, make you think they love you well. Then they'll go away and court some other and leave you there in grief to dwell. I wish I was a tiny sparrow and I had wings and I could fly. I'd fly away to my false true lover, and all he'd ask I would deny. Alas, I'm not a tiny sparrow, nor have I wings, and neither can I fly. I'll go away to some lonesome valley, weep and pass my troubles by. It's a slightly shortened version of that old song.
I love the way you sing, Mick.
Well, it's the best I can do this sort of morning.
Who do you listen to lately? Who are you listening to at the moment, would you say?
I don't ever listen to anyone. Who's struck me lately? I mean, somebody like Martina Stafford, who I'm singing with at the moment, has just released an EP, and that's lovely to hear. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
She's got an amazing voice, and her songs are extraordinary at the moment, and she'll develop. But I mean, other than that, there's people I go back to all the time. Dylan, I suppose, never get tired of. People like John Gorka, Bruce Coburn, amazing guitar players and singers. Everybody, Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
Anything.
So mostly, like, you've been playing so many different bands and you've played so many different styles and you play a few instruments, and so what is your favourite style? Would you say it's folk, blues, grass? Which would be your...
I suppose my favourite is whatever I'm playing at the time. I love playing trad sessions. I play with Geraldine O'Callaghan and Nate Coffey on a Tuesday night there in the Corner House, and it's just really comfortable playing with those people. And then I just played in the corner again last night with the Lee Valley. Four of us that are left, and we had Dan Linehan playing mandolin with us, and a girl called Louise Cronin who's just started playing old time music in the past year, so she's a lovely player. So
people can fall into your set, or is it just
sometimes
it's just people that you're familiar
with? People gravitate to us.
Yeah. How many started out in the Lee Valley String Band actually?
Well, there were just three originally. In 1968, Neil Toner, Colm Toner, and Chris Toomey formed the band and entered a talent competition or ballad competition down in Upper Ahada, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And I think they came second. And shortly after that, Colm left for Dublin, I think, and where he's ended up in Ennis or in Clare now. And Neil went back to Dublin later that year, when his leather business and hot dog business kind of failed. He used to sell hot dogs outside the Majorca in Crosshaven after the show bands would do their set or whatever.
Speaking of show bands, actually, you know, that period, like, I really think that was a booming time in Ireland. You know, the musicians were working non-stop, like practicing all day and then gigging all night pretty much, and they were real workhorses, like driving all day to places all around the country. But I think the work they put into it was incredible, and I thought they were amazing. Now, it may not be your thing that you're into, but they were incredible.
Oh, they were incredible. I still
was
work a bit with Artie McGlynn, and we're great friends, and the stories he comes up with, and he tells me about. And I mean, even the other night, there was a fella came into the Lee Valley session. He's a guy from the north. He's older than me even, which means he's ancient. And he just loves the music. And he plays a bit of banjo and stuff. But I asked him what he was doing. He said he's down overseeing some building down in Cove or something, a renovation of some castle or something. Lovely character. And I said, well, what did you? I was in the show bands for years, he says. And he just sit there. It was a way of life for these fellas. I mean, some of them made a decent living out of it. Other lads, had all kinds of problems with drink and family breakups and stuff like that. It was a hard old life.
It's hard, yeah. And sometimes the appreciation wasn't there, really, was it, for all that they did and all the time they gave it?
They were entertainers.
Yeah.
It was a huge industry. There was, people making a fortune out of dances, including some Fianna Fáil politicians.
Don't get into politics now, you.
And Albert Reynolds did a lot for this country in his time.
Yeah. Well, actually, because they have a collection of photographs of, he had a band room, a hall for dancing.
Himself and his brother.
Yeah.
They ran
but they used to go up with the suits on them and everything, all the matching gear, and they put on a full show. I think it was spectacular. I honestly did.
Well, it came out of the old dance bands, and like it wasn't. They would have been resident in dance halls and things. It wasn't possible to tour around them, so the show bands became a smaller unit, with a brass section and everything else. They could do that music and then go out on the road and take it into dance halls and tents and wherever you could put it around the country.
Yeah. And Rory Gallagher started out in the show band as well.
He did, yeah.
And I know I had a brilliant photograph of you in the rowing club down in Blackrock. I can't give you the year. You can tell me how long ago was that?
Wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah.
The tour.
Yeah. Brilliant
that was
photograph.
A party at the end of the.
I can imagine that went on all night. I'd say, did it?
It did until the guards discovered Artie Lorrigan in their car.
Oh, Artie Lorrigan,
trying to radio somebody. That was kind of the end of the party.
The end of the party, then you had to disband. But would you have listened to Rory's music yourself? Are you into his music?
Well, I like to see the ballad group that I was talking about, the folk set. We used to play in a place called what was it? Oh, I should have tried to remember these things before I came in this morning. It'll come to me in a minute anyway. But it was on a corner in Paul Street, opposite where Tesco is now. And I think Rory used to play downstairs with Eric Kitteringham and Norman as the taste.
Yeah.
And the folks that used to play on the top floor. It was kind of a cafe place at the time. Canadian guy ran it, I think. And that was the first time I saw Rory, I suppose. Well, I would have seen him in maybe the City Hall and things and before that, but not really much. And after that, I'd see him in the City Hall. I got to know him reasonably well, on a saluting basis.
When the lads
he'd come into the Swan and Signet for a pint, which is our
I
local at the
love
time.
the Swan and Signet. Was my favourite pub ever.
The Swan and Signet was a great old pub in Cork for musicians.
Oh yeah,
all the jazz heads used to come in there.
Yeah.
There was always a bass hanging around the corner.
Do you remember Jim?
I do, yeah. Jim Clancy.
What a
Jim and
place!
Mary,
I loved
sister,
it. Yeah. What an amazing establishment altogether. But I also, there's so many different musicians that you've been involved with, but I know that you were a founding member of Scullion, were you?
Yeah, well, I moved to Dublin for a while in around 1974. I spent a year in Dublin, and around that time I had met Sonny. I knew Philip from UCC, Philip King, and I met Sonny somewhere, and he said he was looking for someone to share a flat he had out in Monkstown. So I moved to Dublin and became his flatmate, and we started the band with Philip. Well, Philip had been playing at the time with Sonny, I think, and Sonny's girlfriend at the time, who was one of the Heffernans, Bridget Heffernan, Honor Heffernan's sister. And we became the Sunday night band, I think, in maybe it was in Baggot Street in Toners. We did a bit of residency there, and then it kind of expanded into Scullion. We got a fellow called Eamon Doyle, who unfortunately died there recently, on bass. Dan Fitzgerald was on drums, and Freddie White had moved from somewhere at the time, back from London or something, and he was around, and he joined us on guitar. It's great. We spent about a year
brilliant lineup,
in playing residency in Toners in Dublin and doing the odd gig outside that. Sonny was writing amazing songs at the time, and then he became cloudy at the end of the day.
Yeah.
At the end of the, as he does from time to time. I love you, Sonny, but you can be a bit moody sometimes.
Well, that's kettle and all that, like pot.
So he We basically, at the end of the year, he disbanded the band, and I was wondering what to do with myself, and I said, every time I go back to Cork for a weekend or something, I have a great time. So what am I doing in Dublin?
Yeah.
So I moved back to Cork after. I went in June or something, and I suppose at the end of the second summer, August or September, I moved back to Cork.
So do you think for yourself personally the Cork scene is a brilliant music scene, or do you think it actually is?
I think it was just more Cork as a place to be rather than the music scene.
It's a
Dublin
cool
was
city.
grand, but I always found it very impersonal, and it just wasn't the same. I think I'm a home bird. That's probably why I'm still here after all these years. You know?
Who did you play banjo with mostly? Like the Lee Valley String Band?
Well, the banjo thing came about because in the ballad group, we all played guitars. Sean and Derry both played guitars, and I was playing guitar. And Sean turned to me and said, "Would you think you'd get another instrument and play something else?" So I went up to Mick, your dad, in the shop, and he sold me an old John Gray 5-string banjo, which I played with a plectrum, which was sacrilege for a while, until I met some American hitching one day and picked him up, and I had just bought old-time music at Clarence Ashley's, which was the first time Doc Watson was recorded. It was about 1964 that album was recorded, and it was, Clarence Ashley was somebody who had been famous back in the 30s and had been rediscovered, and he was an amazing old-time trailing banjo player, and I couldn't figure out what he was doing on the album. And I met this American and brought him home for a cup of tea, as you do, and put the record on and said, "I've been listening to this, but I can't understand what he's doing." He said, "Well, I don't play the banjo, but I can show you what frailing is, which is what he's doing." And he showed me basically the drop thumb, which is
will you play something on?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mick.
And he showed me how to do this, which is the start of it.
Yeah.
That's all there is, a rhythm.
Yeah.
And that was basically my introduction to the banjo. Was kind of welded to the thing after that. When I was in Dublin after that, I again the same year as Scullion was formed, the Sackville String Band were formed, which was myself and Neil Toner, again, who was a founding member of the Lee Valley previously, and a fellow called Richard Hawkins. We formed the Sackville String Band. So I spent a year playing with them in Dublin. We had a residency in the Stag's Head, I think. In Dublin.
So when you're singing the banjo, or when you're playing the banjo, are you singing as well usually?
Well, you can play tunes or sing on it.
Yeah, but you don't play the 4-string at all?
I don't play the 4-string.
You play a tune now? I love hearing an instrument isolated. I love it. So do you play every day at home? Are you playing?
Oh, I would. Yeah, I'd always have an instrument next to me at home.
Yeah.
So this old banjo came from Crowleys as well.
Did it?
It hung on the back door of the repair room. Paul's room was so called. For years and years, I used to walk past it, and I'd be in and out. And eventually, a girl called Stephanie Coleman came to UCC for a year. She was from Chicago originally, but she was studying in North Carolina University down there. She got whatever they do sent across to do a semester. And she was an ex-girlfriend of a fellow called Eric Merrill, who had previously spent time in UCC. He was a great fiddle player, and he had told her to look me up, and she did, and we started playing old-time music together that year. And that was the Lee Valley String Band were basically, we did play some old time, but we were more of a bluegrass and singing band, and that's when we went over, as I say, over to the dark side and started playing more old time music. And I remember being in the shop and looking at this band and said, looks an interesting banjo. I took it down and realised that it was an old Stewart from Philadelphia.
Good.
And it was actually an American banjo, even though it had been sold in London. There's a mark of a London shop there.
Yeah.
And Stewart's actually dated their banjos with numbers, and if you look back, this banjo was made in about 1874.
Wow, 1874. I sold a little small body short neck Stuart recently. Only about €300 or something. It was class, and I knew like this is really lovely. Like, but I think they're great banjos. 1874. I didn't think it was that period.
About that, yeah.
And
Well, it would have had old fiddle pegs on it when I got it first.
Yeah.
I had to do all that, and an old skin, you know, some poor old animal donated to it.
Yeah. What is it about the Paramounts, Mick, that everybody seeks out a Paramount as the ultimate banjo? I mean,
I think it's because they're rare. More
Rare.
than anything else. And well, they had a great sound.
Yeah.
And they had very good necks on them, you know.
yeah. So are you a collector, would you say? Because, I mean, most banjo players who get into it at all, they're bitten like by a bug.
I have a guitar for every day of the week and a banjo for every day of the week. I was counting them up the
Yeah,
other
well
day.
covered, so.
But I mean, some of it's an old fretless banjo I have because I lent a banjo to a friend and he managed to have it stolen from his van.
Oh.
So he came to me one day with this thing and I thought he wanted me to repair it. And he said, no, that's a present. So it's an old fretless English banjo. I have two other old English banjos. One's a Matthews that Freddie White gave me a present of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And another one is just a nondescript one. Oh, I have one that Bill O'Brien brought back from Spain. He bought it in a junk shop or something over there. That's a lovely old English banjo. It's like nice decoration on it. So I fixed that up. I have an Ibanez Gibson Master Tone copy, which is a nice old thing. That's more my bluegrass banjo, but the boys think it's too loud for the old time sessions. So I stick with this one.
Yeah.
And I think I have a Chinese banjo, old time banjo. It was quite a good one that I bought from you in the shop as well.
Yeah, very good. So tell me a bit about. I know that you've been involved with a lot of recording. Do you do recording yourself? Do you actually do the?
I've done some recording. I have bits and pieces at home, like microphones and digital recorders and things. Nothing very exotic.
Yeah.
I did one interesting thing I did at home was two interesting. One was a kind of a collaboration with some musicians in Newfoundland. It's called Two Islands. Seamus Cray and his widow Seamus and Mary Meek got me involved in that. And Seamus and myself and Aidan did the Irish side of it or Cork side of it, and then there was lads over in Newfoundland did their side of it, and they sent over a track to me for Aidan to play on, and I recorded it and put the rest on that, and then we recorded our tracks, and then the two were put together. It was an interesting idea.
It's brilliant, isn't it? That you can
and
do
then I recorded Seamus's last recording, basically, which was him, a fiddle shooter. He recorded a double album just shortly before he died. He wasn't well at the time. You can nearly hear it in the recordings, but I did that as well, which was nice.
Seamus was brilliant, yeah.
He was a wonderful man.
Yeah, lovely. Did you play with some of the sessions in the Black Rock and the?
I used to go out there the odd time, but for years, Seamus and myself played inside the Spalpeen Phonic with Dave Hennessy and other people. You know, it was always he was resident there for a long time.
Yeah, what a man. Yeah. I love a lot of the collaborations again, like Artie McGlynn and Martina that you're working with, and anybody else that you know down through the years that you would say that you enjoyed collaborating with.
Well, I mean, usually you enjoy playing with whoever you're playing with at the time. It's always, you know, a bit of fun. I mean, the Artie McGlynn thing is with Jim Rooney, who comes over here from time to time. Jim was a major producer in Nashville over the years, and amazing. He's written an incredible book on his history and music. It's just phenomenal. He was involved in Boston in the folk revival back in the 60s. They're running Cafe 45 or what it was called, where everyone played. Joan Baez came through. All those people were playing there at the time. Yeah. And Jim came over here, I think, the time of the Bringing It All Back Home series.
That was brilliant.
And that Philip had got in touch with him. And at the launch of the Point Depot, he was over for that as well, I think. Now, whether that was before Bringing It All Back Home or not, I'm trying to remember. Probably before. And Philip King had introduced him to me, sent him up to me into our session, and I just jokingly said to him that the band had been together for 30 years, the Lee Valley String Band, and that we hadn't, apart from an EP recorded way back in the 80s, we hadn't recorded anything, and that we should maybe record, maybe he'd be interested in producing it. And he came back to Ireland with his wife. They were going to say 6 months here or a year or something here, and the first thing he did was ring me up and say, by the way, do you still want to do that? And he came down and we set ourselves up in Dan Fitzgerald's kitchen, not far from here, in fact, just over the road. and recorded the first Lee Valley String Band album, Corner Boys, that time.
Yeah.
So Jim and myself became good friends, and when he comes over again, we set up a couple of gigs, just small things, myself and Artie and himself. I call it the Grumpy Old Men Tour. They're not too keen on that.
And what about Tim O'Brien? Have you ever played with Tim O'Brien?
Tim I played with, up in the Banjo Festival in Longford when it was going. I played banjo, Archie played guitar, and Tim played everything else.
Yeah.
I did that, and I've played. He's come into our sessions in the Corner House, and I've played a bit with him.
Is the Corner House like home, would you say?
Our house is too near home, that's the problem. I roll down the hill and I roll up the hill.
If I was going to have a second home, I'd love to be the Corner House, I must say. But
well, it's a great pub, and it's a great pub for music, and there are lovely people in there. I mean, Fergal and Carol run a great house. And Fergal's son Aaron is playing music now and is doing a bit of sound.
He's brilliant stuff, yeah.
He's great young man.
Lowleck still, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, great band, yeah. So, are you doing the sound a lot, or have you done
I do.
gigs?
I still work with the Pops Orchestra. That's a big thing I do,
right.
and in the City Hall and various hotels during the winter mostly. It's Jerry Kelly and Evelyn and a lot of the people from the School of Music, and they basically do kind of pops and strokes, some classical stuff for corporate gigs and things. So I'm stuck with that for years. And, I do the Lord Mayor's concert maybe if it's on again this year, once a year. And I'm kind of resident sound engineer in Collins for any of the gigs. Most weekends are free gigs, so the lads do their own sound.
So you're a busy man, really?
Well, I do bits and pieces.
Yeah, in fairness.
Keeps me up.
So of all the styles, first of all, between the banjo and the guitar, which is your favourite, would you say?
Whatever I have in my hand at the time.
Yeah.
I don't have...
It's whatever is coming to you. And in styles of music then, which was your favourite? Did you ever play jazz? Did you ever go down that road?
No. It wouldn't be a jazz. Jazz and opera are the two things that I never...
What about classical?
I wouldn't have the technique. I can listen to it.
So you don't go to the jazz festival, do you?
I used to, when it was jazz festival.
Yeah.
Back in
It's
the
changed
old
a
days.
lot.
I saw some amazing guitar players up there. American guitar players came in, and a lot of them are dead now. I saw them in little tiny rooms in the Metropole on their own, or maybe with a bass player or something.
Yeah, that's
it's extraordinary.
cool.
You just wander around and see legends.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember seeing some amazing heads.
People listened that time instead of just drinking and shouting at each other.
Yeah. And so, but the folk festival for you is the ultimate thing every year, is it?
The folk festival, I've very little to do with in the past few years. I used to do a lot of the sound engineering for them, but I don't do anything for them anymore. And we haven't had many bookings from them in the Lee Valley or anybody else for a couple of years now. So I mean, good luck to them. You know, it happens every year. But I've had less and less involvement or interest in some of the people that have come over.
So currently, if people want to see you playing, you're in the Corner House for the Lee sessions, and you work with explain the Honora Martina Stafford.
Martina Stafford has a new stage name. Honora, who's her second name escapes me at the moment. She'd kill me for this. And well, I just do the odd thing with her, but she's got her solo thing coming up now. So and she also has Bhaskar Bertha. So I mean, I'm
outstanding talent, absolutely outstanding. I remember hearing one of her tracks. She gave me a recording, and the hair, that whole thing that your hair is standing up in your back of your neck. But I nearly was crying, because I just thought it was so pure. She's amazing. But and have you any albums? Are you working on any albums at the moment?
No.
No. Yeah. You've enough.
I'm supposed to do the solo album, but it's more or less a project that's in the back of my mind somewhere. It's in the back of other people's minds as well, and people keep telling me I should do it. But I never get around to it. It's always like that,
isn't it? Yeah. Would you play a tune on that, maybe?
I can.
That's a Catherwood. It's handmade guitar by John Catherwood from the north. With cedar body, cedar top. Label me.
It's a bit of an autumn leave day.
Yeah.
With the rain outside.
Thanks a million for coming to chat with us, Mick. I must say that all the years down through the years in Crowleys Music Centre, having you as a regular, you've become kind of like family, and I still love seeing you come into the shop. But thanks very much for coming over to see us anyway.
Okay, sis.